some of the stuff that I heard.
We're going to find the time.
I don't
We're
like
going to find the time, Louis
I don't like
Riddick.
pulling up social media and having people tell me, yo, your boy Stephen A is calling you out about something, you know? When I saw that, I was like, man. Okay, all right.
Let's go.
We're going to have time for all that.
Let's go. I like the suit. By the way, I like the suit. I like the suit. Louis, smooth.
I'm glad you're here to defend your takes because he was coming at you. So we're glad you're here to defend yourself.
You know I heard.
All right, let's get right to it. So we'll start off with Lamar Jackson and Carson Wentz. Their teams are facing off tonight. Which quarterback do you guys think is most important to their team's success this season? Max, how about you?
Go ahead.
Carson Wentz, obviously. Look, the Eagles 2 years ago won the Super Bowl. We're in a position to make a playoff run because Carson Wentz was the MVP of the league at the point he got hurt, but he got hurt, wasn't available. Nick Foles comes in, always been underrated since his days in the Pac-12, an underrated quarterback, and took him on a Super Bowl run, won. Same exact thing happens the next year. Carson Wentz gets hurt, not available at the end. Nick Foles takes over, plays him into the playoffs. And then, by the way, beats the Bears on the road and almost beats the Saints on the road. A valiant effort at a Super Bowl title defense. But Nick Foles is gone. And the Eagles roster, I think everyone agrees, is upgraded. They can't do it without Carson Wentz. There's not a backup quarterback who can do what what Nick Foles has done the last couple of years. And these are Super Bowl contenders. You know what the expectation is in Philadelphia? Super Bowl run. They expect to be Super Bowl contenders. If you took Carson Wentz off that team and put in a league average quarterback, it would not be the case. But people believe, because they have eyes, before Patrick Mahomes came on the scene, it was like, whoa, Carson Wentz. That dude looks like the next, Andrew Luck, the next who could eventually replace Aaron Rodgers as the best quarterback in the game, the most talented guy. That guy can if he can stay healthy. Of course it's Carson Wentz.
I disagree. I think it's Lamar Jackson. And the reason why I think it's Lamar Jackson is because I think the Eagles are a more complete team, even without Carson Wentz. I'm not saying they don't need Carson Wentz. I'm not saying that I don't expect him to be big time and electric, particularly when you just elected to let Nick Foles go to Jacksonville. But the flip side is, even though he's 40 years of age, as a veteran quarterback in Josh McCown, who just recently signed with them, you want experience there as a backup quarterback. Why? Because you look at your running game, you look at the receivers more importantly, the Nelson Aguilars, the Alshon Jeffries, the Deshaun Jacksons coming over. Zach Ertz was a monster last year with 116 receptions for over 1,100 yards. You look at the pieces that they have in place combined with their defensive prowess, and there's no question that the Eagles could make a run. Now, you need Carson Wentz to make that run, but that's what you need him for. If you're the Baltimore Ravens, you need Lamar Jackson just to be relevant. They obviously had some success winning their first AFC North crown for the first time since 2012. Where did that come from? Well, 10 games into the season, you put Lamar Jackson in there. His first game as a quarterback, he rushes for 117 yards. He rushes a hell of a lot better than he throws. He was absolutely pathetic in the first 3 quarters of that playoff game against the Los Angeles Chargers. That's some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen in my life. He couldn't throw it. He could have hit Broadway if it was empty, for crying out loud. Standing on Broadway. That's how bad it was for the first 3 quarters before coming on strong and ultimately doing some things, but too little, too late. Lamar Jackson is everything to the Baltimore Ravens. If he can't make things happen, they are at best third best in the AFC North. That's the difference.
Considering how Stephen A came at me today, and I didn't even know it, it pains me to say I agree with you right now. Although I agree with you. Yeah. Okay? I agree with you for this fact. Look, Philadelphia needs a point guard at quarterback this year. And when I say that, I'm talking about in terms of the mentality that whoever plays quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles needs to adopt. Just like Nick Foles did in 2 consecutive years. As long as you play the point guard and you don't make it about you, everything else is going to take care of itself in Philly because of the playmakers that they have. And you, as the quarterback, are going to benefit, and you're going to get all the accolades because your yardage is going to be just ridiculous in terms of completion percentage, yards per attempt, passer rating, touchdown interception ratio. They're set up to succeed. Now, I'm not saying that you can just throw any old quarterback in there if you didn't have Carson Wentz, and they would make it to the Super Bowl. As Max, you have correctly said, it's Super Bowl or bust in Philly. There's no doubt about that. But I think Philadelphia is so strong, and they've done such a good job of making this roster into what it is right now. And I think their coaching staff is so dialed into exactly what they have and how to best utilize it, that they will be look, they would be okay if Josh McCown had to play, because I think Josh McCown's one of the greatest pros that we've ever seen at the position, regardless of what kind of success he has had. He is the ultimate point guard type of player, and that's what they need. In Baltimore, there's no doubt about it. Baltimore goes nowhere if Lamar Jackson does not develop. Look, he has to develop his ability to throw this football 15, 20 yards down the field outside the numbers. If he does not develop that part of his game, teams will pack the middle of the field, Max. They'll pack the middle of the field. They will force him to throw the ball outside. They won't allow him. He cannot continue to get away with running the way he has.
Sure.
I know it's electric. I know it's exciting. He's not going to get away with it.
If you're asking who may be more interesting to watch their development, that's a different question. If you're asking which quarterback has to do more, in other words, who has less around him, that's a different question. But the question is, who's more important to the team's success?
But
You can't just have any old quarterback. Like, I really feel like Nick Foles has been slighted here. And this goes back to the Pac-12, Lewis, when everyone, obviously Andrew Luck, but also Matt Barkley and Osweiler were put ahead of Nick Foles, and they shouldn't have been. Then he turns pro, 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Well, Chip Kelly's offense. And then he looks bad with Jeff Fisher, because everyone does. And as soon as he gets another shot, he wins a Super Bowl and then leads a team on it. So, we're acting as though, I understand what you mean, you need a point guard and McCown has been a point guard. You ain't going to win a Super Bowl with Josh McCown under center. That's not going to happen.
You're not going to make it to the playoffs if Lamar Jackson doesn't improve. And if you
the team's not as good.
I'll tell you this, if RG3 has to play, you're looking at maybe a 6-10, 7-9 football team. Maybe at best.
But you might be looking at that with Lamar Jackson too.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they need him. They need him in order to have any shot at making it to the postseason. Philadelphia can make it to the postseason. I think they can make it to the postseason. They may not win the division, but they can make it to the postseason without Carson.
Carson. If we turn the question into who has the better team around them, obviously Carson Wentz has a better team around him. Is that the question?
Well, let's move on.
All right, so hey, Lewis, I just want to make sure to give you a chance to defend your Raiders pick, because earlier, and Stephen A., I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but Stephen A.
I heard he threw me under the bus, backed up over me with the bus, all that stuff.
He said, Lewis, that you need to be drug tested. Those
were
his words.
Yeah, that was the words I heard.
Why do you believe in the Raiders so much? Defend yourself.
I said it. Go ahead, man.
I'm gonna tell you why from top to bottom. All right.
Okay.
I went out there to Napa. All right. I watched these young men practice. I watched how John was interacting with this football team. I watched how the coaching staff, Paul Gunther, the defensive coordinator, was interacting with this football team. Sat down and talked to Trent Brown. Sat down and talked to Brandon Marshall, the linebacker they got from the Denver Broncos. This football team believes in how they're being coached, believes in the system that they're being coached within, believes in the players that they brought in here, the mix of players, youth and veteran. They believe in the leadership that they have on this football team right down the middle of this field, meaning this. People out there believe in Derek Carr. These young players believe in Derek Carr. Derek Carr believes in John Gruden. That relationship is fine. I've had my questions about that relationship. That relationship is going to be just fine. The offensive line on this football team, when Gabe Jackson comes back and Richie Incognito serves his suspension, is going to be one of the best in the NFL. Trent Brown, okay, remember this when I said this. Trent Brown is maybe the best tackle in football. The best offensive tackle in football. And you know why?
On the right side, though, right?
One, I saw him do
it.
Two, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL told me this. He is the number one most difficult guy to beat.
Are you talking about the left side?
Without a doubt.
You're saying he's the best on the left side in football?
I'm saying he's one of the hardest. Well, he's going to be playing right tackle for Oakland.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But hey, you know what?
Hold on,
let me finish this. Let me finish this by saying this. Let me finish this by saying this.
Okay.
If this team stays healthy, meaning they don't lose any vital components to this football team, the Raiders are going to make a run. The Raiders are going to challenge for a wild card spot.
Yeah.
Okay. Trust me.
Okay.
I'm just telling you.
Real slick.
Look,
that's real
man,
slick.
Everything
That's real slick. Oh, they're going to challenge. They're going to challenge. They're going to challenge for a wild card spot. They could be all right. Week 12, they 6-6. I mean, come on, man. You can't do better than that. Come on, Lewis. Come on, Lewis. Oh, by the way, Paul Gunther. Did you bring up Paul Gunther?
Let me ask you this.
Let me ask you a question.
Why don't you believe they should be taken serious?
I'm getting ready to go there.
Okay,
Did you bring up Paul Gunther? He's defensive coordinator. That's who he is, right?
Yep.
Was he the defensive coordinator in Oakland last season?
Do you know the players that they had last season?
I just asked a question, Lewis, because they were ranked dead last.
Try out for the Raiders based on their rosters last year and make that football team at 50 years old.
Let me tell you something right now, man. Let me tell you something right now. The Raiders, listen, I know John Gruden knows football. You know, he worked here for 9 years, did a hell of a job for us on Monday Night Football. I'm not here to besmirch this man in any way. The man is absolutely a phenomenal football mind. I know that, but his record has improved it. Not last year, not a decade ago, in his last 6 seasons as a head coach. He knew football back then too. They got to the playoffs twice. He's fiery. He's chucky. He's got the personality with the histrionics and everything like that. It didn't translate into winning football. They won the Super Bowl in 2002 with Tony Dungy's team. We get all that. There's 2 playoff appearances on his record since that time in his last 6 years. And last year, it clearly was not the greatest beginning. Got rid of Khalil Mack, got rid of Amari Cooper, placed his faith in Derek Carr. We don't know about Derek Carr. Well, I know that John Gruden knows what he's doing, but we don't know whether or not that's going to translate to players performing for him. Antonio Brown, we don't know how much a distraction he's going to be. I'm talking to Louis Riddick here. There's very few people as straight and narrow as you. You are very, very big on discipline. You're very big on structure. You're very big on the absence of distractions. And none of that applies to Antonio Brown right now.
That's true.
Then we get into that you're bringing up other names, and I get that. And you had the nerve to bring up Richie Incognito. Really? Are we sure he's going to be eligible to play? We don't know.
Okay, I'm going to say this.
Man. Let me say this. They're the third best team in the division by at best.
And that was my last point. They're the third best team in the division at best. With Kansas City.
Okay, all right. So Kansas City's the best team in the division. No question.
Okay. And the Chargers? What about the Chargers? What about the Chargers? Are they not a Super Bowl contender?
You know what? When I go around and I talk to some of these players in the league and how they look at some of these teams, let me just tell you, look, I like the Chargers. Okay. I like the Chargers. Mm-hmm. Okay? As long as the Chargers keep putting everything on Phillip Rivers' shoulders, the Chargers ain't going nowhere. Okay? As long as it's always going to be about once you get in November and December and then January, it's going to be about,
Are you ready for this?
Phillip
Are you ready for my response to this?
They're not going anywhere.
Are you ready for my response to that?
Okay.
I totally agree with you. Come playoff time, but during the regular season, he usually balls, and that's enough to block the Raiders from getting where you say they're getting.
Bash on the Raiders. I know it is. I get it. Look, I'm not saying that Richie Incognito is necessarily the kind of player that I would have brought onto my football team. I'm not saying that.
I would have brought him on mine.
I'm not saying that.
I don't mind bullies on the football field.
I'm not saying that.
In the locker room.
And look, we all know that right now Antonio Brown is a pain in the of course we know that. Of course, but I'll tell you this: they have, and you know what? And right now, I'm surprised nobody's brought up Vontaze Burfict, right? How much he could be a distraction, quote unquote. I'll just tell you this though about Vontaze Burfict, nice. And I have said some things about Vontaze as far as his demeanor and his behavior that says, look, I wouldn't want him on my football team either. But I'll tell you this: what the people out there in Oakland said, and the players out there in Oakland have said themselves. The perception of Vontaze Burfict and then what he has been and how he has conducted himself out there, how he is another coach on the football field, and the leadership that he has brought to that football team internally totally flies in the face of everything that we think about.
Let me tell you something.
I'm just telling you.
Let me tell you this. I totally agree with him. I had the pleasure of meeting Vontaze Burfict a couple of years back. I had the pleasure of having a very, very lengthy conversation with him. The brother's smarter than people give him credit for.
He's very smart.
By the way, he's very, very smart. And I have no doubt that what you're saying is absolutely true. So I'm not trying to knock that. But we get back to Max's point. At best, they're the third best team in the AFC West. You can't deny that, Lewis.
Wait, Lewis, you look like, hold on, Lewis, let me pin you down on this. You look like what you're saying is you don't know that they're not going to have a better record than the Chargers. You think that they might have a better record than the Chargers, don't you?
I think they will give the Chargers a run for their money. No doubt about it.
Why'd you answer that question, Lewis Riddick?
No doubt about it.
He asked you
okay, let me ask you this. Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
Answer the question,
do you think that in the absence of Melvin Gordon, and now that Derwin James ain't going to be there until maybe November, December, do you think that matters at all?
Oh, yeah, it does.
A little bit.
No, it matters a lot. Derwin James,
yes, but Melvin Gordon is a lot. Melvin Gordon.
Oh, I know. You're listening to what Tom Telesco told you, Max. I know what you're listening to. You're saying, you know what, they've got plenty of backs by committee that can go ahead and negate the fact that Melvin Gordon may not be there. I get it. I know. I'm telling you this. I talked to some of the guys who played for the Broncos just the other week. Let me just tell you this. Let me tell you. You don't have to believe me right now. I know y'all don't want to get in front of this. I know you don't want to get in front of believing in the fact that the Raiders can actually be turning the corner. And I know there's plenty of people are going to go, man, you're just a Raiders homer. You know what? Once a Raider, always a Raider thing. If I hadn't gone out there and talked to these guys and watched these guys practice, I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying.
I said, hold on one second, Stephen A. Lewis, I said earlier, the reason I think there's pressure on AB is because guys like Louis Riddick have been talking about that, and I have to respect your predictions because they frequently come true. I'm just perplexed at how this one's going to come true because of the point Stephen A. just brought up. The Chiefs and the Chargers are better than these guys. That makes them third best.
I'm a big believer in the Chiefs, Max.
Right.
I got that.
Hold on.
I'm just not that big a believer. Okay, I'll put it this way. I'm not that big a believer in the Chargers.
Wait a minute, Lewis, wait a minute. You also came on this show. You were a big believer in Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator in Chicago. He's now the head coach in Denver. You ignored that one. You ignored that one. Oh, by the way, you talk to people. Well, guess what? I talk to people all the time, especially on the basketball side of things, who's in the streets thinking they can play in the NBA. What the hell is that, man? I don't give a damn about the conversations. They got to go out on the field and play.
Hold on.
Come on now.
Why did you bring up Vic Fangio anyway? What was the point you were about to make?
Because I'm saying Denver, you're ignoring the possibility of Denver too.
I'm not sure the Raiders will be better than Denver.
I'm just going to say this. Look, Denver's offense scares me. Their offensive line is not good. They're not good. They're going to struggle to score points. Now, I will say this. On the defensive side, Vic will have them right. Bradley Chubb, I'll tell you this. Bradley Chubb is going to challenge for the sack league in the NFL this year.
Yeah, Denver looks like a 6-7 win team.
Their defense is going to be legit. It's going to be legit. But their offense, on the flip side, the offensive line is terrible.
But, Lewis, Denver looks like a typical tough out as they are every year, even when their records are great.
I'm going to tell you what the
6-7 wins. So you have the Chiefs and the Chargers in Denver. How many wins are left for them?
Max is missing the problem with Louis Riddick. Louis Riddick hung out there in Napa Valley, all right? You understand what I'm saying? Wine country, hanging out with John Gruden and the boys, and he got a little soft with his daggone analysis. He's emotionally caught up with the Raiders, the Silver and Black. That's what happened. Him and Mayock, could you imagine Louis Riddick? Because Mayock knows football, mind you, and knows football, and obviously has some media experience. He was exceptional doing that, and I think he's done a good job thus far as a GM with the Raiders. But he hung out with Louis Riddick. They took him out to wine.
He got a little brainwashed?
Louis is compromised. Louis is compromised. That's what the hell's going on. That's what's going on.
He's saying you're a Raiders asset.
You guys are terrible.
Archive this conversation, because this conversation, we're going to revisit this.
Absolutely. We should revisit it.
But again, the suit is nice. The suit,
brother.
Suit is nice. Do not let them shame you on being in Napa and living your best life out there. Thank you for joining us so much.
Living my best life.
More First Take to come. Is James Harden right that the media controls player narratives? You don't want to miss Stephen A. and Max debate this topic.
Don't miss your golden opportunity to experience our most advanced safety technology on a full line of vehicles. Now at the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event.
Lease the 2019 ES350 for $379 a month for 36 months and we'll make your first month's payment.
Experience amazing.